embodiment of strength and vitality, and dedicated his whole life for the upliftment of humanity. His life and words were like thunderbolts and have been inspiring millions of people throughout the world. We also have a very great, enthusiastic, and successful leader among us, Honorable Mr. Saket Modi. As we know, Sir is the co founder and CEO of Safe Security, a cybersecurity and digital business risk quantification platform company. Sir did BTech from LNM Institute in Computer Science. Then he founded Safe Security in 2012, while in his final year of engineering. Incubated in IIT Bombay and backed by Cisco's former chairman and CEO, John Chambers, Safe Security protects the digital infrastructure of multiple Fortune 500 companies around the world with its cyber risk measurement and mitigation platform called SAFE. Sir is a part of Forbes magazine's 30 under 30 list, Fortune magazine's 40 under 40, Entrepreneur magazine's 35 under 35, among others. He has an experience of 8 plus years as CEO of Safe Security. So, on this great day, the topic of our meet is living your passion. And we can see that Sir has persuaded his passion and achieved such remarkable success and continue to do so. So I would like to request Mr. Saket Modi to please shed some light on this topic and guide us a bit towards finding our passion. So I would request everyone to please mute your mics, and if there are any questions, please ask in the chat box.
Brilliant. Ashi, thank you so much for inviting me. I want to start with, by thanking Niyogi sir, AP Singh sir, director sir for the opportunity. I just want to check if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? Ashi, Niyogi sir, can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure that
Yeah.
you can.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes, sir, perfectly.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So, so I just want to start with thanking Niyogi sir and AP Singh sir and director sir for the opportunity for coming in and inviting me to come and speak with all of you. I'd even start with a thank you to all of you for taking out the time to listen in to me. For me, I'll be taking this session for the next 30 to 40 minutes. And then, if you will have questions, I'm very, very happy to answer whatever little based on my experience that I can answer. My journey obviously started. My little experience that has been there in the last 8-9 years really started from A112, which is in Boys Hall 2. I understand there are more boys halls which have come up ever since, and the reason I say that is because I want you to first think of me as somebody who has been an entrepreneur, has been pretty deep in things like cybersecurity, enterprise software selling, in India for sure, and to some extent outside of India also. That's really the core attributes, how you should look at somebody like me. What you should not look at me is somebody who you want to ask about things outside of these domains. And the reason I start from there is because when I was your age, when I was in the college, one of the big things that I was very fortunate to figure out, somebody told me, and somebody asked me, this was almost a trick question which I figured later, how many books do you read in a year? And I was like, okay, how many can I tell? It probably will be embarrassing if I say very little and things around that. And I said, I don't know, maybe 20, 25, because I was trying to compete and not feel guilty about or not feel ashamed about the number. And the person laughed and he said that it's not about the number of books you read, it's about the kind of books you read and who the authors of those books are. Because you can be dumping in a lot of information which can actually mislead you in everything and anything which is out there. And the reason I start from there is I've been very fortunate that when I look at very, very incredible people, right? If I go and talk to Niyogi sir, right, I want to learn from him about the meaning of life, about, with everything that his life has been through, and how would you go ahead and understand a deeper meaning of life, which he's so much better than I am at, and I would want to ask him that. I would not want to ask him, how do you build a scalable database which can do X number of transactions every second? Because that's the wrong thing to ask. At the same time, if I go to AP Singh sir, and I've been on hours and hours of long calls with him, with his ICICI banking experience, I would ask him about, what does it feel like to work in the right place with the right culture, with the right kind of stuff. I still remember him teaching me so many times, how does the banking system work, how does mutual funds work, how does insurance work, and I was fresh out of college and trying to figure out how do you sell enterprise software to all of these individual verticals. So you want to see everybody from their strengths. So I'm talking about places where I've made a million mistakes, but you can count them as my areas of strength. Starting up on enterprise, but again, asking, hey, should I choose between studying abroad and doing a job and doing entrepreneurship? I will probably be the wrong person to answer that question, because all I have seen in my life is how do you run a startup, which gets started from very much in the boys' hall to eating my food at the mess at the same place where you guys would go, and going from there. So that's just level setting of what I can talk to you about, because over the last 8-9 years I've made so many mistakes. My takeaway from this session would be that if I can go ahead and I can tell you about a few mistakes I've made, and you don't make the same mistakes, you will still make mistakes no matter what you do. It's just how life works. But if you don't make the same mistakes and you make new mistakes, I think it'll be a win for me. To come out of this session. So that's just level setting where we are. For the next 30 minutes, I will not be covering a lot about me or anything like that. My learnings of what things have been, I'm somebody who enjoys very, very thoroughly, reading about lives of people. So I don't read a lot of fictional books, or I don't watch a lot of fiction. But on the other side, with my time, I like reading about the lives of what I call as cool dudes or rock stars. And there are a lot of people, and today, of course, is the occasion of the great, Swami Vivekananda, and his birthday, and the National Youth Day being today. There's something very, very special that he had and what he spoke about. But we'll come to that later, and we'll talk more about that. But I will just talk about the sum total of my learning. It was not going to be a technical class on AES 256 encryption or how do you do SQL injections. We've done a lot of that, but the next 30 minutes will just be a filter of all the mistakes I've made and all the learnings that I've had while making those mistakes over the last 8-9 years that I've been running the startup. So I'm going to share my screen. There's a very small presentation which my team and myself we put together for you. Please let me see when you can see the screen. Can you see my screen? I will need somebody to say yes or no.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes, sir,
sir.
it's visible.
No, your
Okay.
screen is not visible.
Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. It's
Yes,
available.
sir.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So, oops. Okay. Okay, so living your passion, that's the title which is out there, right? And living your passion on today's day, which is the National Youth Day, like a good engineer, I want to take a step back and actually start with the meaning of youth. We'll talk about the meaning of passion. And again, remember, all of this is coming from a 31-year-old who's trying to go ahead and still figure out how life works. But so you'll always want to take this with a pinch of salt. But this is what the Oxford Dictionary says. Youth, which is a noun, is the time of life when a person is young, especially the time before child becomes an adult. This is the Oxford Dictionary definition of what youth means. I'm not going to go to the presenter mode. I'm sure you can read the screen and you can put things together. I will give you some examples of what this means and how this means and why did I start from here. Do you know what's common between Apple, Facebook, and Google? Okay, I will not do the Q&A right now because a lot of people might speak because there are a few hundred people, but the common thing between all of them, among being phenomenal companies, by the way, this is now a $3 trillion company, this is a $2 trillion company, and this is now close to $1 trillion, right? India's GDP is still to cross $3 trillion, and this is already a $3 trillion company. So they are massive companies. But That's not what is common between them. You know what's common between them? The other thing which is common between them, they were started by very, very, very young people. They were started by Steve Jobs when he was the age of 21. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook when he was 19. And Larry Page started this when he was the age of 25. They were all very, very, very young. They were very, very youthful of what you would call them as in typical terms. But I actually have a disagreement with this line when you say that they were young when they started. Because you know what? The average population on the planet is actually very, very young. If that is the case, why are only a few young people able to do certain things which most young people are not able to do? Maybe it has very little to do with the word young, but it has something more to do with somebody who's very, very curious. And when there is curiosity, you couple that with passion, maybe something magical happens. So, what I'm trying to tell here is, in my view, they were super curious about where they wanted to see the world. Why was the world in a particular way only? And how could you change the world by being very, very curious about anything and everything that goes around them? And the rest is history. And you know what proves this? Big companies, which are trillion-dollar companies, are not just built by people who start at the age of 19 and 21 and 25. If you see KFC, it was started by somebody at the age of 65. Jack Ma started Alibaba at 30, 34. Netflix, Reed Hastings, was 38. So if you see, in my view, I won't change the definition of youth. I still want to call them super youthful, including Colonel Sanders. But in my view, being old means you're at a place where your curiosity has died. If you think about a very, very, very small kid, truly a small kid, if you pull the kid in a stroller and you take the kid with you somewhere, everything the person is curious about. You put a small little, box in front of the kid with two colors, one color, the kid will want to know, oh, what is it, how is it, etc., etc. They're crazy curious. We are all very, very curious when we are born. But as you keep moving forward, unfortunately, that curiosity dies. In my view, that's where the youth dies, and you start becoming old. You start getting closer to your deathbed. But if you can be 65 years of age, crazy curious about something, you can go ahead and create something iconic and phenomenal, uh, and that's there. So, firstly, I want to change the definition, and I don't need to fight with Oxford Dictionary for that. For me, it's not about the age; it's about curiosity. And in my view, I don't know any person who's built anything of significance. And I'm not just talking about building a company. Even when I see I have a 200 member team in more than 10 countries around the world, when I see every rock star performer, they're crazy curious about anything and everything which is out there. I love this quote by Albert Einstein. He says, I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. In my view, he's one of the youngest men who ever walked this planet in the last 100 years. And it is just so beautiful. He was so curious about anything, and you look at things. The reason I'm starting from curiosity, the reason I'm starting from saying that, look, what does it mean to be young and youth? I want to start with, because today is National Youth Day. And I know, of course, all of you are young, but you're also growing up. And in my view, again, I was very, very, very fortunate to be super curious all the time about anything and everything that I would want to know about. And when you're curious, you deep dive. And when you deep dive, there's some incredible things which happen. Now, about talking about incredible things which happen, how do you make them happen becomes the next obvious question. 25 years back, 30 years back, 40 years back, you needed, at a time where India was not opened up, especially before 1991, you needed a very, very prominent surname to be able to get a government contract. And it was almost not even a monopoly. It was two or three, these big business houses doing most of things which are required. If you wanted to set up a factory 2 years, 20 years back, 30 years back, it needed a lot of investment. Today, All you need is 50 rupees to set up a domain name. Today, all you need is 2000 rupees to register your mobile app. And you know why we put the logo of WhatsApp here? For a simple reason that WhatsApp was actually started by a person who was rejected by Facebook for job. He didn't have a system of his own, registered an app, put it on the Play Store and the App Store. When WhatsApp was acquired for $22 billion, the total number of engineers it had was only a few hundred. It's unreal of what you can do today as an individual person when you're crazy curious. At the same time, you don't need a big surname or a lot of money in the bank. All you need is that you start with a spark, which is curiosity, and then you passionately follow that in certain ways which are possible. But the question can always come back that, okay, that sounds interesting. You're saying we have to be very curious. I'm curious about a lot of things which are out there. What is it that I want or I should pursue, which can be the big question here? I think it all comes back, especially in today's world, which is API first and online. These are two very important aspects. API first is very important because when you build your mobile app, and I know I'm talking to most of you guys as IT or computer science engineers, you can just build just get your own Postman account and build a lot of stuff to work with you almost free of cost. With a world where 50% of the world is online already, out of 7 billion people on the planet, 4 billion people connect to the internet. So, in a world which is online, where you are a creator and creator of an app, creator of a website, creator of a company, creator of a project, doesn't matter what. But when you create that, the means that which you can do that today is so much easier than it has been ever in the history of mankind. But the important thing, because you can see there's so much I can do. If you're a developer, you can almost create anything that you want. What is it that you should do? Before you get to the what, this is a very famous TED talk. It's actually the second most watched TED talk ever by Simon Sinek. It says, find your why, start with your why. I highly recommend, if you've not watched the TED talk, I'll keep recommending you some stuff. If you think it matters, go ahead and watch that. You need to start with the why. Why will you do what you would do? And when you start there, there is a north star, right? Finding your north star. It's a nice line by the same gentleman, Simon Sinek, who's a rock star, and he says, the challenge of the unknown future is so much more exciting than the stories of the accomplished past. And the reason I'm giving you that example is when you start with the why and you're challenging the future which is out there, it is so curious. You are so curious about, wow, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm going to work. And no matter what you work on, there'll be these 7 zillion challenges that you will come across, no matter what. Because remember, everything which happens is not controlled by you internally. It's internal plus external. And to a large extent, you can control stuff internally, but external is not in your hands. And the moment you understand that, I mean, you sail through the whole thing when you understand the why. Where is the North Star that you're going towards? So let's understand, how do you find that why? But before I get there, I'm going to ask a question to everybody. How difficult is rolling a ball on a mountain? You have a big ball filled with air, water, whatever. How difficult will it be to roll it on the mountain? I'm sure you'll have different types of answers out there. The right answer is, it depends on what direction you're trying to roll the ball. In other words, if you're trying to roll the ball up the mountain, it is a very different kind of effort. If you're trying to roll the ball down the mountain, it's a very, very different kind of effort that will be required. And the reason I start from there is, if you're going to work on something extremely curiously, extremely passionately, rather than rolling a ball up the mountain where there's so much of headwind against you, do you not think it's better to just roll the ball from top to the bottom? Because you can choose the direction. At least when you're a first, second, third, fourth year student, you're not married to a field, you're not married to a geography, you're not married to a particular thing that you have to do. So when you can choose the direction, You will have to roll the ball for sure. That's how life is. That's what life is. But when you're rolling the ball, the dice, etc., the direction which you're choosing, why not have that going downhill rather than uphill? Because uphill becomes more and more difficult. And therefore, in my view, and again, I'm biased, startups are that amazing place where you can be, where you can shake the system. In the famous words of Vinod Khosla, another talk that I highly recommend, you should just type Vinod Khosla. He was the founder of Sun Microsystems and the CEO, and he's a rock star. And he has this really nice talk he gave for Stanford Business School for the graduating class. And he said this very nice thing, says that all invention which happens, which has disrupted something, think about it, right? The space industry was not disrupted by Lockheed Martin. It was disrupted by SpaceX, right? The Wright brothers, which created the aircraft, were not the highest funded. In fact, they were not even popular at that time till the time they actually took off the flight. There's somebody else who had a lot of funding, and it was a very large organization which was trying to build the aircraft, and they failed miserable. And Wright brothers, which was a very, very small, almost like a startup, it was a few people determined to make things happen, and the rest is history. If you think about box office or HBO, that did not disrupt the online streaming business. Netflix did. If you think about cars, General Motors, Toyota did not disrupt the automobile industry. Tesla did. And Tesla is a $1 trillion company today. What is the common thread which I'm trying to talk to you about everything when it comes to disruption, shaking what is out there? Right? Apple disrupted IBM at that time, which is there, right? Because IBM was making personal computers and Apple said, I'll make it better. And it came as a startup. It didn't come from HP, which has been making computers forever, but nothing like Apple. Apple is today a $3 trillion company, and HP is a few $100 billion. The point I'm making there is that all kinds of disruption happens at the edges, is what Vinod Khosla says. And I love what he says. Because when you're so deep into the core, the problem which happens is you're so worried about the reputation of the company, about taking the risk, about quarter on quarter results when you're public, etc., etc. Being a part of a small company or having your own small company, being a part of a place where you can really move things and question the status quo, again, going back to curiosity, because you're curious, like, hey, this doesn't work, but you don't take no for an answer. Say, if it doesn't work, I'm going to go and solve it. That's the reason why startups become so exciting. And again, it's arguably one of the best times to be doing that. But again, remember, because I've done a startup, I'm biased. So you want to take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. But on the other side, when if you want to do a startup, because I know a lot of you guys who joined, I got some messages also that you want to say, hey, what and how should we select that? And it's not just about a startup, about a company. When you're starting a job, that's also a startup by itself. If you're doing something where you're entering into a new field, where you're doing certain things and starting there. So the why of what you need to be doing needs to be understood very, very clearly. And how do you choose the why? There are three key things that I would say you always want to keep in mind. I always like, and again, I'm biased because I'm a geek and a nerd. There's only one description about me, all awards, recognitions, blah, blah, blah. None of that's important. Those are byproducts. The core of me, who am I? In one line, I'm a geek and a nerd. I love that. And what is the meaning of a geek and a nerd? Somebody who likes playing at the first principles. Most of you are computer engineers, or you understand concepts of it. Understanding how, when you click on a button, when you click on a file, not only the actual program written about the file, not only going all the way down to the actual, machine code which is there, going all the way down to the compiler, going all the way down to the registers, and understanding the NAND, NOR, XOR gates using which the operations happen at the register level, at the memory, at the processor level. And based on those operations, the outputs come out, and then you're able to see what you're able to see. That computer science would mean at first principles level. So if you're in a startup, if you're at a place which is very, very sound from a first principles perspective, and by the way, first principles doesn't mean you need to really go down and go deep with computer science. I would say Amazon.com disrupted the consumer experience from a first principles basis. If you try to shop on Amazon.com, it's so flawless. They just know exactly what will you want once you've checked out or you want to check out or what things are. If you think about, right, Elon Musk, right, he disrupted how do you manufacture a battery, how do you go ahead and rethink the entire automobile industry. Like Apple doesn't use, sorry, Tesla doesn't use any dealers. He completely disrupted how the entire automobile industries would work. Why? Because he thought in first principles that what can I change things which are already assumed are a particular way. So you start with things which are first principles. It's very difficult to do that. But again, if you're truly curious, you keep asking why. You keep going deeper and deeper. And then you get to that point where, okay, this is exactly how it works. And the moment you understand that, you are able to go ahead and create something out of it. And the byproduct becomes you become the best at what you do. So number one, you want to be at the first principles place where somebody wants to solve a problem from first principles. Secondly, you want to be in a field and a geography which is almost a no-brainer that it will grow like crazy. Why do I say that? Let's take an example of field, right? Whether it's, I'm in cybersecurity, so I'm biased. You have cybersecurity, you have ed tech, you have fintech, you have data science, right? Data science as an industry is growing 31% year over year. Massive tailwind. In other words, if you're an average engineer or an average startup in a space which is growing at 31% year over year, the probability of your success, when I say success, if you define success as, say, a successful exit, IPO, or making a lot of money, or doing a lot of, research, etc., because there's been so much, volatility for an industry which is growing so much, if you even if you're average, you'll do so much better than you're the best at e-commerce, because e-commerce is super flooded, too many amazing people, too many very smart people, and already thought through 50 things that you will be excited about. Oh, this already been tried and this already happened. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's great to be in a field which has that crazy tailwind. In other words, the ball you just touch and it automatically rolls down seamlessly. In fact, in a place like this, you actually end up going ahead and saying, I need to stop the ball because it's too fast that it's going, then beyond that. Also, you want to be at the right geography. If you are making electric vehicles in Finland, it's not a smart place to make because most vehicles are already electric out there, right? If you're going ahead and in a country which doesn't support startups or technology, it's not a great place to be. India, in that way, is a great place to be right now because more than almost 40% of the startups are based on technology, and it's really getting disrupted. These are government of India numbers. These are number of startups recognized officially, and this was last year, which was 16,000, and this was till June 3, FY22, where as you move forward, the government extrapolated this, right? This is DPIIT, which is the government body. So again, I think you're in the right place, especially in India, given we have 1.3 billion people and we are an economy which is growing the fastest at the speed, at the scale at which we are. And you just want to be at the right place because, again, you get the tailwind. And the last piece, which generally gets very, very confused, is also the fact that, it has to be exciting and urgent to you. It has to connect to you. You have to feel like, yeah, that's something that I would like to wake up with and sleep with. And I want to spend my 20 hours a day because that is something which I enjoy working. Now, this is a very, very slippery slope in my view. Because I've spoken to so many young people and they're like, no, but you know what? We like so many things. Or the other extreme, we don't like anything. We don't really know what to work on and what to not work on. So while this is very important, the other way of looking at it is this really nice quote by this gentleman called Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman is the one who actually was a Nobel laureate in physics. And again, one of your physics 1, 2, 3 that you actually read in college, the actual book was written by him, right? And I love this line. He says, nobody ever figures out what life is all about. And it doesn't matter. Fall in love with whatever activity and just do it. Nearly everything is equally interesting if you go into it deep enough. This is the whole, I would say this is the crux of that. Again, when you're super curious and you passionately deep dive, going back to the Albert Einstein line, right? You're just passionately curious. It doesn't matter what you do. Just take one thing that you think is a problem and you want to deep dive into it, but You have to really, 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 really go deep into it. And when you do that, that just becomes something which is pretty incredible. Now, now that you understand that, okay, it at least gives me some framework on how I can decide that if I'm coming out of college. By the way, I didn't start the company when I was came out of college, right? I actually started this toward the end of my third year, early fourth year, is when I started Safe. And even before that, I was working part time, doing trainings for cybersecurity, going in a lot of colleges. And I remember Niyogi sir and AP Singh sir were kind enough to give me the attendance at that time. I don't know how it happens now, but but I was not the most frequent in the class because I was always doing something out there, right? Because that's just how it was. But the point I'm making is that if you figured out where you are, first, second, third, fourth year, doesn't matter, that okay, you're saying take anything, try to take things which have a tailwind. Okay, maybe I like data science. I think this is a big problem in data science. I think there's a big problem in e-commerce, fintech, whatever, right? And I want to deep dive into it. I'll register my app, I will register my stuff. What happens then? Because that's just step one of knowing the why. Then the next step really becomes that now that you know the why, let's understand what next. Where do you really, really go? Because the first thing is you're super curious and you figured the why out. The next part is let's deep dive into it with passion. What do I mean by that? This was a nice quote by Oprah Winfrey, which says, passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you, right? So when you figure out the why, and which is close to you in some extent, and you're ready to really deep dive. And deep dive, if you want to quantify deep dive, I've seen this in almost all cases, it's 18 hours a day. Whatever excites you and you're so deep into it, you feel like, oh my God, why do I have to sleep? It's such a waste of time. And when you're up, when you open your eyes, you're like, this is exactly, exciting. This is exactly the time. And I just want to dive into it. And everything else feels like a waste of time where you're so laser focused, right? That I want to see the end result, the end goal, which is out there. And you have so many examples, right? I mean, this is a good example. If you know of Michael Jordan, I highly recommend everybody to watch a documentary on Netflix. It's called The Last Dance. This is about the life of Michael Jordan, right? And this is about him talking everything. If you know him, he won 6 MVP titles. MVP is most valuable player, right? The next person has won only 4, right? He's like, 50% more than that, almost 50% more than that. And the greatest ever, like, Nike actually became Nike because of Michael Jordan, because they signed up Michael Jordan, and that was the greatest hit ever, right? So that's what it was. So Michael Jordan is a great example of somebody who was crazy curious and passionate. He loved basketball like almost like nobody's business, and he obviously became the greatest ever basketball player, like ever, because he was laser focused. How do you become the absolute best which is out there? Let's talk about the actor. This is a nice video. Let me know if you can see the video. uh Whoops, I think we will have to. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear the video and audio? Hello. Whoops. Can you hear me now? Can you see the video and hear the video? Just a quick check. I need somebody to say yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to play it. This is Matthew McConaughey, where he was an actor in Interstellar, and he won the Best Actor award, right? This was 2014. And again, an absolute rock star. And see what he says when you talk about passion and his own hero and what he looks up to. Listen to that. Were you able to listen in? Can somebody say yes, just so that I know that?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So this was Matthew talking about how when you talk about his hero, and he's like, every time I think about that's my North Star, which goes 10 years out and put things together. The common denominator, if you think about these people with crazy passion,
is that they are laser focused on the end result, right? My hero 10 years later, and Michael Jordan was laser focused on becoming the best basketball player. Another good example is Tiger Woods, laser focused at becoming the world's best golfer. And there are too many examples that I can keep giving you with the whole thing, with the whole thing which is out there. Now, this is great, right? And they are then when they are laser focused in their end result. But there is one problem that I tried to notice and I tried seeing in common between all of these people. When you reach or when you see the documentary of Michael Jordan and fast forward to that section which says, I think it's the second last or the last episode, where after winning 6 titles, and no human being has ever won that, like ever, he was asked, what is the one thing that you would summarize your life with? What is that one thing that you think you should have done and you did not do? And imagine this is the greatest ever basketball player ever in the history. You know what was the answer? The answer was that I should have tried the 7th one. I only got 6. Can you imagine, like, if you asked Michael Jordan when he was a kid, what do you think about where you want to be in the future? He was like, if I can get one of those titles, this is the MVP trophy. If I can get one of that, it'll be the biggest ever dream that will come true. He got one, he wanted second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And even after sixth, he retired. Like, shit, you know what? I would have done one more. What's Matthew saying? Exactly the same thing. Hey, my hero keeps sliding. The goalpost keeps moving forward. And therefore, while they're crazy passionate people, and that's the reason why they get to where they get to. Don't take me wrong, they're amazing. But there is a problem if you think about it. Even after doing everything that they do with so much passion and curiosity, they're still at that point which says, oh my God, I just needed that one extra thing which was there. And none of them were able to get that, like most of these people. And that got me, when I was thinking about passion and when I was thinking about putting this together for you guys. If you think about it, can any of you tell me what is the Hindi word of passion? I'm not going to ask because I know there are a few hundred people there, but if you think about it, passion doesn't have a word in Hindi. If you think about it, it's very funny, right? The closest Google says passion means josh, right? Have you ever in our Indian history and things around that, right? Whenever you've heard a little bit of, of our people, have you ever heard, can you imagine Buddha saying, do everything with josh, you will get what you want? Can you imagine him saying that? It even sounds so wrong, right? I mean, what are we talking? Animals have passion, right? I mean, when I say passion, I'm talking about josh, right? A bull has josh of doing things which are there. Now, don't take me wrong. Now, this might go a little bit on that direction. You're like, hey, what are you saying? I thought we're supposed to be passionate, right? And now you're saying that it's not the right thing. No. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is that if you think about it, right, that if you just try to go into a slightly deeper understanding of life, right? In my view, whatever I was able to go ahead and see, and I remember this quote from Mahatma Gandhi, where he says, no, the passion should be there, and you of course need the passion, but it should not be just for the end, but it should be for the means and the end. And there will be multiple people who say, look, because there is a way to get to the end, and this is the end. So Michael Jordan, for him, this was the end, but the end kept moving when the focus was only at the end. So you need passion, don't take me wrong, but the focus of passion was always towards the end. But a lot of people, including Mahatma Gandhi, a lot of people says, no, it's not just the end. Yes, you need a world free of violence. But to do that, if the means is to get rid of 90% of the people in the world, that's not the right end. And you can very passionately try to pursue the end, but the means is wrong. And that's not a good place to be. So there are a lot of people which says the means are equally as important as the end. And you have to keep both in mind, that when you're crazy passionate about that is where I want to get to, the way you will get there is equally very, very important. Now, while a lot of people said that, and I understand that, I actually think that there is a even deeper meaning if you want to go even further. Because if you think about it, the problem of having two things which matter to you, and there are a lot of people which have done that, is you are still don't know how to define your goalpost. Because if means are equal to an end, you don't know where to keep your focus, and where really are you supposed to feel, okay, I've done it, I'm happy about it. Where will Michael Jordan say, you know what, it was a great life and I'm happy and proud about it? It doesn't say that there's another one. Therefore, and I love this line by Swami Vivekanand, he actually takes it the other way around. He says the end doesn't matter. Here and now is all we are all about. In other words, what he says, that the means of what you're doing today, forget about the end. In fact, this circle is also too big for representation. Ideally, this is what it should be, where it doesn't matter. So when you actually talk about what you're doing and you're so passionate and curious about doing what you're doing right now, and if you just do that and you do that extremely well, the end doesn't even matter. I'm not saying it will take care of itself. Saying it will take care of itself also means you're looking forward to the end, right? Oh, it will take care, therefore I'm not taking care of the end. No, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you just fall in love with physics, if you fall in love with data science, with every single equation, with every single line of code that you write, what you're doing today, if that becomes gorgeous, right, it's suddenly the byproduct of that automatically becomes that you're the best in the world, and it automatically becomes very beautiful. I'm not saying that. I will show you Steve Jobs saying that. So let me play this again.
If I had
A 2-minute clip. This is from the Stanford convocation of Steve Jobs, where he was going ahead and talking to young graduates from Stanford like yourself, and just listen in to see what he has to say.
never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward.
There is some echo. I have to have Arnit, you have to mute yourself. Okay, good, great. I will just take 10 seconds pehle, just so that you can listen in of what he was saying. And he says something very beautiful, that you can't connect the dot looking forward. In other words, when you're looking forward to an end, you can't connect the dots. You always connect it looking backwards, and see what he has to say about that.
If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
So I want to pause there. And the reason I showed what he just said, every single day when you're creating a dot, and it can be a line of code that you commit, it can be a customer conversation, it can be a conversation with your investors, it can, every single dot, when you're making sure that that dot today, the means, if that is something which is beautiful, which is something where you've given your 110%, and that dot is not just one dot, you keep doing that. Now, a lot of times you might say, okay, I want to do it because I want to be the best. The problem with that is you will get worn out, you will get burnt out. But if it's almost like a dancer, if you're a good dancer, and when I say good dancer, I'm not saying because somebody else says you're a good dancer, because you enjoy dancing, you're crazy passionate about dancing, you just want to be dancing. If you love playing the piano, you want to be playing the piano. It's not about anybody else. It's not about who's listening, what's listening, where it's listening, blah, blah, blah. And the moment you can be playing that piano with your entirety, and you do that not once, not twice, but 18 hours a day, not for one day, not for 2 days, for years and years and years, it is so easy that you will be, the byproduct will be that you'll be the best in the world in almost anything that you're doing. So that's just what I had to share. I know I'm through with my time for the first 40 minutes, where, if you are passionate about what you're doing here and now, and that is the means which are out there, I think that should be there. And I highly recommend, if you want to see all of this, whatever I said, even more deeper and beautifully, you should listen to the Chicago speech that Swami Vivekananda gave. He was a very cool man. I've studied about his life. His guru was even more cooler. More about him some other day. But the point I'm making there is that he had this beautiful 45-minute speech where he gave at the World Congress of Religion, and it was such a beautiful thing. So he was a very special man that way. So I wanted to bring in a little bit of that angle also, because for him it was here and now. It is not the end that matters, because the end is we don't need to even care about that. So that's there. If there was one piece of advice, because a lot of people asked me, and a few of my professors I was talking to, that I should end with, if I was to give you one piece of advice that you want to take away from this and forget about all of that, when you deep dive into something, what I can definitely tell you is, at the place where you are, take the longer route. It's faster. So that's all I can tell you. Where when you're crazy passionate, crazy curious, you're going deeper and deeper. It is always the longer route, but it is faster to you getting to where you need to get to. So anyways, I'm going to stop here. This was I promised you 40 minutes. So I'm through with the 40 minutes, and I'm very open to questions. And Nyogi sir or Ashi, if you want to just, I don't know if there are a few questions, I'm very happy to answer anything. Yeah. Whoops, I hope I'm still audible.
Yes, Saket,
Yeah.
it has been an excellent delivery.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, whenever I hear you, every time you bought different. Your previous speeches were different, and every time you give something different. So that is the beauty. So excellent talk, and whatever you have explained, it is exactly what our Gita also says. Do your work without expecting the result, because be passionate with the work at present. The result will take care of it automatically. Don't worry about the result. So only then we can work efficiently, actually. But you explain in a very, very different way, but very nice. And that is Saket Modi, actually.
I'm glad you liked it, sir. Thank you. And
Yeah,
again,
I'm really glad that you have prepared this, talk so well. I thought that you will just deliver your, whatever things happened, like your last lectures, but it is a totally different lecture altogether.
Sir, you said it's a very special day, so I just wanted to make sure if somebody's spending 30-40 minutes listening to me, at least I didn't want to waste their time. So I just hope some people got some things. So I don't know if there are questions. If there are none, we can close the session. But
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this beautiful speech, for all the guidance you gave today. Sir, there is a question by Aditya Garg. So I would like Aditya Garg to speak and explain the question she was asking.
So, good evening, sir.
Aditya, it's you're not audible. Can you?
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Good evening. Yeah, you only get to ask me questions. You don't call me sir. You have to call me Saket. I'm like your batchmate. Treat me like that.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening. My doubt was that initially you told about what we can do ourselves, like in entrepreneur ventures. But I would like to ask, after getting an idea or after finding an idea, how do we work upon it to make it profitable or finding a suitable business model upon it?
Great question, Aditya. And spoken like a good entrepreneur. And I would say, finding the profitability of any model is like asking, can you explain me how sine square plus cos square equal to 1? And I'll explain you what I mean by that. See, when you start at step 1, what you always want to get to is you explain to somebody what is numbers, what's geometry, how does a right angle triangle look like, what is the meaning of sine, cos, etc., etc. And then you get to the point where you talk trigonometry, right? So it's algebra, geometry, and then trigonometry. The reason I gave you that example is I've seen that most people, especially at where you are, Aditya, it's not about finding profitability. That comes much later. Step one is always finding the product market fit. But what is the real problem you're solving? And that's the reason step one always has to be, how much time are you spending with your customers? Or are you the customer yourself? So a lot of times, Brian Chesky of Airbnb, he had a problem in finding a hotel because he didn't have enough money to go into a hotel, and he was traveling into a city. So he thought, yeah, there'll be a lot of people who will want to rent out a room in their house and just make a little bit of money out of it, like a air bread and breakfast. And he went to a friend's place, paid him just a few thousand rupees, and they were very happy. Okay, yeah, I was able to do it. He was himself a customer. Then he did a lot of survey of customers and then came out with it. So step one, I think, especially with where you're starting out, you need to know the product market fit. But then you can always say, okay, then the next step will be profitability. So what happens? How are we going there? Well, the answer of profitability is hidden inside product market fit. When you really understand product market fit, exactly what your customers want, it's like Albert Einstein knowing physics so beautifully in so much depth that he can automatically see E equals mc square. We can't see it. We are normal people. Similarly, when you will so deep dive into a problem, you will say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that. And there is this market for this, that market for this, and that market for this. And then it's a very simple multiplication in terms of, okay, if I do this, this much is the market which is known, this much is unknown, and you put that on an Excel sheet. And then you understand the market is large enough, or if it's not large enough, you want to add more sections to it. But again, remember, that's the circumference of the circle. The core of the circle is knowing your customer. So whenever you're starting, knowing your customer, knowing your customer, knowing your customer is the absolute number one thing that you have to be focused on. When you will know the customer so well, you want to start an edtech platform. Go and talk to 1,000 customers. 1,000, I'm not kidding, sounds crazy, but go and talk to 1,000 people of exactly what they expect out of the edtech mobile app which you want to make. Just the sheer interview process of 1,000 people that you will have will be enough to give you exactly the problem that needs to be solved, and will tell you exactly how many people will adapt it, how many people will buy with what money, and then the rest is history, which you can pretty easily create. Did that answer your question? Was that Aditya?
Yes, of course, of course. So glad to have my concepts clear with you.
So there is Shashwat Dwivedi next who wants to ask the question, I guess.
Mhm.
Shashwat, please proceed with the
Good
question.
evening, sir. Am I audible?
No, not audible till the time you call me sir.
Sir, I apologize, but I will call you sir because I can't stop giving you respect for what you did.
No, you're very kind, Shashwat, but that's fine. As Shakespeare says, what's in a name? So I will go ahead with your question. Please go ahead, Shashwat.
Sir, I want to ask, like you said that the idea came into your mind when you were in mess. So, sir, I would like to ask, what was the seed that was sown in your mind? That what was the first thought? There is edtech, there is fintech, and there is cybersecurity also. So, sir, how were you sure that you are only going into the that cybersecurity stuff?
So, Shashwat, I probably miscommunicated. I didn't say that the idea came because it was a mess. When I was in the mess, or I was in a mess. The point I'm making there is that we always want to think that there was a trigger, there was something which happened, and there was lightning, and we always think of a Bollywood or a Hollywood movie that something happened that night and the idea came, right? Something happened that angel Gabriel came and said that, look, you are the chosen one. So that's not true. That's not what it, at least it didn't happen to me. If you go back to my life when I was your age, right? When I was in college, I was leading as a captain of our table tennis team, as a captain of my chess team. I had a band of my own. So we had a band in our college. We used to call it Arcane Sanctum. We went across the country. We were playing that. There was basically, obviously, cybersecurity, where I was going and training people, and there was a long list, right? What I was doing back when I was in college. The reason I'm giving you these examples is uh, I was so crazy passionate about table tennis. I was so crazy passionate about chess, about music, about any of those aspects which are there. If today I was a table tennis player, I had zero issues. I would be so happy about it. But when it comes to cybersecurity, it was almost like this was, remember the why which I was talking about? When I spoke about how do you choose, I could choose any of these areas. And I'm not saying I would be good at all of that, but I'll be equally happy doing it. But when I had the option of choosing between becoming a professional table tennis player or a chess player or a musician or a cybersecurity entrepreneur, I actually thought that there's a lot of tailwind, and this is back in 2012, that in the next 10, 20 years, cybersecurity will be one of the very, very important areas. So the right area, I was actually in the wrong place because I was in India for the first 5, 6 years. We grew, but we didn't grow as fast. So I moved to California. I'm based in Palo Alto in California, and I moved there in 2018, and that was the right decision. So I went to the right place. It was the right space. And again, it's like I chose the ball which came down so that I can get that tailwind. And you're able to do so much more. And obviously, I kept deep diving into it. So again, there was no one idea. There was multiple things I was crazy passionate about. I've been extremes in my life always. If you look at my report card in school, it had more reds than blues. In other words, I used to fail in almost every subject. I was very, very bad student. But mathematics, computer science, and physics were the three places where almost every time I was one of the top students, right? Especially with mathematics and computer science. Those like I was always off the charts, right? Always topped my school, etc., etc. The point I'm making there is that if you think about the whole aspect around, being passionate. When I was passionate about something, I would really deep dive into it. If I was not, I'm okay with not doing very well. I don't know if you guys know this. It took me 5 years to complete my engineering. And I actually got my degree with my junior batch because I didn't have enough attendance in the last year. And I couldn't get my degree that year. So I actually got it in the fifth year. And I have actually never collected my degree, to be honest, even till date, because I've never needed a degree and resume. I've been very lucky that way, right? I'm still stuck at my first job because I started this back in college. But coming back to your question, I don't think there was one idea that, oh, one night I'm like, this is what I want to do in life. No, whatever I was doing in life, I would deep dive into it. And it doesn't have to be just the names. If I was watching TV series, I remember we used to have DC++, and I used to download TV series. I used to start, like when I wake up in the morning, eyes open, spacebar. And when I close, spacebar. Like literally, there's like 18 hours of watching TV series, and I was so passionate about it. I was very particular. I never saw How I Met Your Father and Friends and Enemies and all of those because I didn't want to watch a TV series to hoo hoo ha ha and laugh around. I always watch things like Sherlock and Hustle and White Collar and Castle and Code Geass and Monster and all of these places where it was almost like a mental gym where I was having fun watching it, where you're solving the cases, it's almost like, you're at the edge always. When I was watching that was 18 hours a day. So I've never done anything in my life which I've not done 18 hours a day. If I do it, I'll do it really deep, not to be the best, but that's just how I am. So again, sorry, long answer. I like shorter answer, but because where you are, I wanted to draw the context also. Does that answer your question? Was that Shashwat, or did that answer your question?
So it was
Yes, sir.
Shashwat.
Thank you for that.
Thanks,
So
Ashwat.
just one small thing, like right now, all that I know is how to solve math, physics, chemistry, nothing much, a bit of C++. So, sir, before you were in third year or before implementing your idea, what were your skill set?
Oh, you are far more qualified than I am, Shashwat. Uh, in fact, the person who used to go ahead and actually write C++ code was one of my dearest friends in college, and I'm very fortunate to be working with him right now alongside. He's one of our core team members who owns one of our big use cases in the company. He's the one who used to code, and I was the one who always used to talk and present. So I was the one who was doing that. So the point I'm making there is that the fact that you're good at maths and physics, it says you're good at logical reasoning. And when you're good at logical reasoning, it means anything that will be thrown to you, you'll be able to break it into pieces, and you'll be able to see that as a puzzle, and you can put that together, almost like how a scientist would work, which is good. But does that mean you'll always succeed? No. You want to be thrown the right problems at you. And that's where I told you, choosing something that you're very passionate about, choosing something at the first principles level, and choosing something which has, the time has come, right? Whether it's data science, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. All of those can be great places where you can start. Just make a mobile app for the college, make a mobile app for Jaipur if you want to. That's also a great place to start. But do it after interviewing the actual people in Jaipur of exactly what they want. So that's all I will say, that you are super qualified. Spend 500 rupees to register a domain, host your website, host your app. I would not leave college till the time I've at least tried two startups. Two is a random number, but a few startups is what I'm saying, till the time I leave. So yeah, Shashwat, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Shashwat. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more, I guess. Kushal Singh is there, who wants to ask a question. Kushal Singh, you may proceed.
Yep.
Good evening.
Hi, Kushal.
I I just want to ask that when you were rolling a ball down the high, when you were rolling down your ball down the hill, was there a brick which stopped it? And if was, then how you overcome it? Means I'm not asking about that the details, but was there or not? How do you overcome it? I'm not asking about that technique or something like that. But
Kushal, that's a funny thing about when a ball rolls down. Bricks are actually good. We don't realize that because it slows down the speed and gets the speed where it's supposed to be. And I've seen that with most of the problems in life because if you go back to the Steve Jobs speech, and he says this very beautifully, that he was kicked out of Apple. Kicked out is the word. And when he was kicked out of Apple, he says that was the biggest ever blessing in his life, because he says, I was naked. I was like, when you were the CEO and you're the founder, it's like, I'm being kicked out of my company. It will be very, very shameful. It will be like, oh my God, I went to my college and everybody respected me for that. And if I'm on the cover again of Forbes and Fortune, but not for the right reasons, but the wrong reasons, it would be so bad. So I would say not one, but there'll be thousands of those bricks which will come in between. In hindsight, you will say they'll always come. But the good part can be, as long as you learn from it and it can modulate the speed and get the speed in the right way, and more importantly, the direction and the speed both. I think nothing wrong there. So yeah, that's it. We'll wrap up in 2 minutes for sure, because I know we were an hour and we're already 10 minutes ahead. So I hope that answered your question, Kushal. You asked me philosophically, so I answered philosophically.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kushal. Yeah, Ashi, do you want to just take one last question?
Yeah, sir. Just one more, I guess. Keshav Agarwal. Keshav Agarwal, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Hello, Saket sir. Hope you're doing great. I wanted to actually ask you a question that suppose we have a startup idea and later on we actually decide to have a co-founder. So how important it is to have a co-founder in your startup? Because I actually read somewhere that a co-founder should be someone who can perform tasks that you can't. So please give your notion on that.
Let's put it like this. Firstly, a startup is the people you hire and not the plans you make. Because when you do a startup, and these are not my lines, these are Vinod Khosla's lines. It's beautiful. But whenever you do a startup, there'll be 1,000 things to do, right? 1,000 is, again, an underestimation. I'm not kidding, right? You'll have getting the product market fit right. You'll have engineering. Once you know the product, you need engineering. Once you've got the product right, you need to take it to the market, sales. And you have sales, you have sales engineering, you have channels, you have sales enablement. Once you get sales done, then you have customer success. When you have cloud ops, you have project management, you have going ahead and getting the right kind of word out from the customers. Then you have marketing, where you go ahead and see how do you get the word out in the right way. You get the right case studies, you get the right social media in place, you get the right creatives in place which can create great presentations, the right videos, the right content. Beyond that, if you want to go, you obviously have the horizontals like finance and HR, where all of this needs to add up together in not in Excel sheets, but actually ERPs, where you have a track of all the numbers which are going on. So you need the right finance controller, you need the right compliances, because every geography you will go to will have compliances. You will need the right kind of uh, accountancy, where you have receivables and account payables, because you'll have vendors yourself and you will be a vendor of so many companies. Then you have HR, where you have the right policies, the right culture. How do you do talent acquisition? How do you put things together? By the way, this is a very condensed list, what I just put together of what you need to do in a startup. And the reason I say that and I put that out is as a founder, you need people, and not just as other co-founders, as anybody in your company who has your back. Who can there be ever one person who takes care of everything, is a genius with 20 heads and 20 hands? That only happens in our mythological tales, but doesn't really happen in real life, unfortunately. Maybe fortunately. But the point I'm making there is that you always want people who can go over and beyond you. If I tell you I work 18 hours a day and I have two more co-founders, they work 19 hours a day. One works 20 hours a day. And remember, it's not about the number of hours you put in, because that's activity. And a lot of activity does not always add up to progress. But I'm giving you an example of their commitment. And when you have not one, but 2, 3, 4, and then 40 and 400 people who are all thinking in the same lines of saying, how can I make this company successful? How can I make things happen in this company? The moment you can do that, there is a magic which happens, because then you don't have one mind, sharp mind, wanting to do great things. There's so many amazing minds thinking all the time, how do we make this successful? Because we are connected to the vision of the company. This will take my career forward. This will take my family forward. It will take my financial net worth forward in very, very significant ways, which other places won't. So the moment you have all of that, so I'm sorry, I'm giving you a longer answer just so that you can get a little bit of color and not just a point, because it can be misconstituted because you're just starting out. But the point I'm making there is that, if you think about it, if you can put all of that together and you can have 1, 2, 3, I would say have as many co-founders as you can. Best case scenario, your entire company can be a company of co-founders. Now the question becomes, hey, does that mean you give equity to everybody? Why not? I have 200 people in my company, and every single person, including my driver, owns equity in the company. And that's beautiful, right? Now you can always vary the degree of equity. That's a different story, because if somebody comes later, a lot of groundwork and plumbing has happened, doesn't get as much equity as somebody who's starting up fresh. But isn't it a beautiful thing where you can have so many people thinking, we have to make this successful together, then only you thinking that? I think that's like the minimum requirement that you want to make anything significant and meaningful. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Keshav. Okay. Ashi, I think we can just wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, I guess there are questions ahead, but I think your time is running late, I
Well, it's not
guess.
about my time. If you have things, guys, feel free to send them over on LinkedIn or Instagram. I've been told by my digital team I need to be more active on Instagram, so I'm learning and I'm trying to do that. So send it on Instagram or LinkedIn. Pretty active there. I'm very, very happy to answer anything for you. As I told you, as you saw, I've made so many mistakes over the years. So if I've been able to share some of that, and you don't make the same one, you will still make others. But if you make the new ones, that for me would be a good 45-minute or 1 hour 15 minutes spent with you guys. So thanks for the opportunity, Niyogi sir, AP Singh sir, director sir. Thanks for the opportunity of inviting me and allowing me to speak and interact with everybody.
Thank you.
Saket, whenever, as I told you before, whenever I listen to you, I keep listening and listening and listening. So it was a wonderful talk. And this is recorded, and I think it should be shared in the class. And every student of LNMIT should see this particular talk. It is really enlightening. And I think you have made this day, this is the National Youth Day, successful by this particular lecture. We have learned a lot. In fact, a lot of things about not only, people thought that it is regarding, business or entrepreneurship, but it is totally about life. So, and that is the most important thing. So, your talk is both philosophical as well as practical. So, thank you very much. And I think, you have really made this day a very wonderful day for us. Thank you very much for
Thanks for
giving
the
your time and
opportunity.
energy.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much, sir, again.
much, Ashi, for hosting this. You've been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, there is
Thank you.
just a small request. Can you accept the connection request on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
The students are asking for the
I'm
same.
actually out of the whole number of connections that I can request or accept on LinkedIn because it has a limit. But you can send me an email. But you can always send an email to me on Instagram because there's no limit. So if you send
Okay.
that to me, I can definitely chat with you. That's no problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again.
You're
Thank you
very
very much, Saket. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
क्या बोलता है?
Thank you, Yogi sir, for such meeting. Such
हाँ,
Thank you,
thank you.
sir,
good.
for
It
this
was really
amazing
Oh,
insightful.
this wonderful.
Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you very much.
very, very interesting for us. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
It was an
बहुत ही
amazing
अच्छा
talk
talk.
with sir. It was
Yeah, he
awesome.
speaks so well. Actually, he speaks so
Actually,
well. Ah.
So will
No,
the
I want
recording
to
be
be
shared?
his student. Good that you enjoyed. Huh?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Definitely. Awesome, Jack.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yes, sir, very
Ah.
much.
So will the recording of this session be shared?
Yes,
Yeah,
surely,
yeah,
surely,
yeah.
you will share it. Because I have to see it even myself twice or